Welcome to the channel. Today I'm going to be covering a little bit of a new series, and so I've got a little plan here and I just want to talk about this before I start the video. So as some of you may be able to tell, this is going to be a Fortnite related channel, and I want to release different types of content that are themed under different things. Now this one is going to be the Fortnite Analysis series, and this is where I'll be going over wins that I got where I got the #1 position, and I'll be going through the general thought processes and other things that I went through to really help you guys out. So a lot of people just show their actual gameplay and their wins, but I want to actually provide you with the insight into why I did the things I did in these games. And because of that, I'm going to be cutting past a lot of the useless stuff, and I'll be showing more of the things that are actually important. So these will be more of an informative video rather than just watching me get a bunch of kills and a win, and that you actually learn something from this video, because that's the purpose. So the first thing I'm really going to go over here is the position that I choose to land at. In this particular game, I decided to land at Pleasant Park, and I like this position overall because there's a lot of loot there. There's like over a dozen houses and loot locations in the general area, and dozens upon dozens of possible golden crate spawns. But on top of that, you've got the northwest flank as you come in, so particularly behind you there's not really anything that's going to be advancing in, and this gives you the best opportunity and angle to move into the circle from. Now to get into even more specifics, I choose the northwest section of the town to land in, specifically in this top left house, because there are two things, as I said, that are major to this. Because first off, it allows you to move around the town freely as much as you want. As you're at one of the corners, you can choose which section to move into unless you've got the best angle of attack. But also, if you consider the fact the circle's almost never going to end in Pleasant Park, this is the most efficient loot path to take, because once you've moved through the town, you can just move onto the circle. You don't need to circle back through the town or anything to get additional houses. Now I just went through and looted the house as you normally do here, and I managed to obtain 2 shield potions. Now the thing about being at 100% health and 100% shield is you are now immune to instant death from almost everything in the game. There are only 2 things you now have to really worry about. The first is a bolt action sniper rifle headshotting you, and that will still one-shot you. And the second is the pump action shotgun, which if all of it is aimed into your face perfectly, will also one-shot you. Now you could put the RPG into consideration here, but the difference is with the travel time, you don't exactly have to worry about somebody just popping it off out of nowhere. Now when moving around in the initial starting ground, and you're going to be having to move between houses to try and gather as much loot as possible, make sure to check the windows, because through the windows you can see whether the interior doors have been opened, which people will usually leave open if they've been inside. This gives you a good idea of whether the area is safe to move into, and obviously if you're trying to get through the town as efficiently and quickly as possible, this is very important to know where is the safe locations and where are the enemies at. There's another little trick I used here, and you guys may have gotten into this situation before where it can be awkward to jump across the ledge because of the way you pickaxed into the roof to get to the chest, but you can actually flip your stairs around by going to edit them and then moving across the middle section as I did in the video. And this is just a neat little trick so that you can reorientate things and make things much quicker without any of the hassle, as well as it also makes it so that if anybody was theoretically following you, they can no longer just run up the stairs as they previously did and shoot at you from behind, because it acts as a barrier. In the early game, I move around the edges of the town, constantly looking within to check if I can see any stragglers or anybody moving from house to house, as well as it allows you to advance along the sidelines where there's open space. There's not going to be any objects to obstruct your ability to put up some quick cover. This is all essential parts of the positioning I choose, and all of these contributing factors adding up increase your chances of mathematically surviving by a large amount. The other thing about traveling on the outskirts and edges of the town is that most people are looking inwards, so you're out of the line of sight of most individuals. When assaulting a house, never use the front or back door, as these are the areas that are already pre-designed the enemy can be covering for possible intruders. I know this is kind of common sense for a lot of people, but you would be surprised at the amount of individuals that try to assault my house by coming through the front or back door, and then I kill them and they've got plenty of resources they could have used just to have built a bridge or stairway up. So always advanced from an elevated position, The second thing you will notice is that I'm always checking around my environment into town, and especially from where I just came from. In the early game, you're gonna fight a few different types of players, and one of these player types is the Stalker. These are guys that landed near you, and they try to silently follow you until they've got a position where they can just shoot and kill you easily. Now usually they'll keep trying to follow you one house behind, and so always keep your eyes on where you just advanced from, where you're advancing to, and the town itself. If you are assaulting a house, you've got all the sound cues of other players nearby to give you that audio information, so you should be using any time that you actually have at the exact moment to invest into visual sight on other areas. You should really be aiming to keep the maximum situational awareness at its peak efficiency. Another thing to talk about is where I actually decided to infiltrate into the house. I decided on this specific area to break as much line of sight as possible. Now you can't hear this, but there was a few golden crates I could hear inside, so I knew the house hadn't been looted. So I decided to take this angle of approach specifically, and if you can see when I turn around, this breaks as much line of sight into the city as possible. I could have chosen the roof and gone all the way up, but then multiple positions can shoot at me. My back's now turned towards the outside of the city where nobody would have landed, and even if somebody did land out there, there's nothing for them to get up with, so it's a non-threat. This also means the chances that somebody knows your location are almost nil, and you should consider this as much as possible line of sight. Even when you get into an engagement with an enemy, you should be trying to break line of sight with other enemies, etc. It should be a thought that is constantly in your process as you make any strategy or initiate anything in the game. You could see I'd caught somebody out here, and using the tip I told you about earlier, always create and use an elevated position when you're gonna make an initiation, we basically take all the guy's cover away and kill him from above. Now I did run out of ammo trying to take all of his cover away, and instead of reloading I just switched to the other gun, which is another tip I'd use because I had two rifles, two of the same type of rifles actually, so I'm just gonna drop one of those later, and the ammo loss is basically negligible because she didn't lose anything. This also does highlight the power of destroying cover that people are behind to make them panic or just outright kill them. Now in this portion, I'm going to show you what to do when you get under fire from two individual different people. I was talking to somebody in the Discord about this situation, and it actually happened to me. So he was talking about what do you do when you get sandwiched between two different individuals or groups, and you're by yourself in the middle at a lower elevation, and they have snipers and you don't. And this exact thing happened to me here. Both of these characters, as you can hear from the guns, have sniper rifles. They're bolt action and semi, and I'm pinned between both of them with absolutely nothing to counterfire with at a lower elevation to boot. You've basically got to create walls as you go along and mini forts. Hopefully they'll start picking off at each other because everybody needs to get to the white circle, and we're so far away from it at this point. I was actually wondering, what are the enemies going to do? This might end up being one of those games where I just can't get to the zone and I just have to take these guys out with me in spite. Eventually, with a little bit of playthrough though and some good skill, we managed to kill one of the snipers, and I know with the blue zone coming at me, there is absolutely no way I can make it to that white circle with how far it is, unless I get some meds. So I had to make the gamble, went over and got myself some good items including the med kit. So we used the same tactic as earlier, switching between two ARs to destroy down some cover, killing somebody again the same way in the same game, proving that that is a good tactic. As well as in my previous video, if you saw the top 10 starter tips that I gave, I'm not even sure if there was 10 actually, but in that video I did say that resource collection at the early game is very important, and with the structure I built earlier saving my ass, as well as this structure right here getting me a kill and saving my ass again, you can clearly tell that this is true. Resource management is very, very important for these reasons as listed, and as I said earlier, destroying cover once again utilized to a high level of effectiveness. So here I had to play the big long-term heal strategy using the bandages over time. I've paced this really fast because there was a long journey, but it does show you how far you can get across even towards the final circles, and I had to really push here, sprint the entire way and use the bandages perfectly. After a long journey in the blue zone and the storm destroying my heart and soul and hope of victory, once you get in, it is essential, if you have some healing items left, that you instantly build cover and heal up efficiently and then get out of there ready for the next circle again. And I did this quite well, as you can see here, keeping my composure, which is also a very important thing, because if you panic you won't be able to make the most logical decisions, which at these points are the most important in the game. Now, I took this angle of approach specifically for three main reasons, and these were decided very quickly. The first is, of course, as I've talked about, you should always be considering line of sight in every single possible action you make, and blocking off line of sight to as many enemies as possible when you're making risky maneuvers is the best thing, and this is one hell of a risky maneuver, so this building works quite well to break a lot of the line of sight, and I only really have to focus on one angle. The second reason is it sends me down the small side of circle. Now, the small side of circle will come in the slowest, which allows you to move along with it instead of being rushed like the big side of circle. The last reason is that it gives me the elevation advantage geographically, and as we've talked about previously as well, elevation is one of the biggest advantages you can get yourself as a player. Moving in here, obviously in the engagement, I need to get towards that circle while I fire at this guy, and I can't be caught in a bad compromise where I get pinned or anything, so I decided to move along the right side as well as building walls, because now everyone might be aware of my position, but they're also aware of his, and he's in a more dangerous environment as well as at lower health, so the focus and priority will be on him, not me, and this allows me to take an angle around, because again, I want that elevation. You should always focus to fight and win the elevation when possible, unless you're in a situation where the doing so would actually make you lose the game almost certainly. Now, I could hear some kind of zapper in the shack to my left, so there's almost certainly somebody in that location. I built a quick fort here, and I'm going to speed lapse a lot of this, but there's something I want to show you because I did a cheesy tactic with this guy, but I also want to show you this, which is very important to know. When you go to edit structures, you can actually highlight all the tiles so that you can see directly through, but to other people it'll just look like the normal brick wall, and so they can't see it like this. You can just have a window basically where there's no window, and it's a little bit OP. I'm sure it's going to be addressed at some point, but for now, use this to your full advantage. Remember how I told you guys to never advance in from the front or back door? Well, I decided to take this to the next level with this kill right here. Now, once you actually get the rocket launcher, it really is GG. It's just GG. Easy. But always make initiative, and I make an early initiative into the final circle here, and this is important because you want to be the first person or one of the first people to get a fort. As the Marines say, he who dares wins. That's an essential thing to remember. Take the initiative. Do not play the campy game, because all that means is you're going to be advancing in 2 minutes later when everybody's already set up. You at least, if you're going to engage them, at least make it on equal terms, right? Where you're just shooting each other on the ground and they've not got a super huge fort with a rocket launcher. The rest of this is pretty self-explanatory, so I'll come back to narrate when some additional insight is required. Now here I played a really risky move to go grab the airdrop, and as you can see you can actually shoot these down in case you didn't know, by the way. And always build a little bit of a fort around the area so it's a lot more secure, because these things are very sought after and you know everybody will have their eyes on it, especially if you decide to shoot it down. Now I decided to engage this guy here. This is going to come down to fort warfare. It's going to end around these two forts. But remember not to tunnel vision, and this is a mistake a lot of people make. After making little burst engagements with them, take a second to appreciate the view around. Make sure nobody's advancing on you. Take in the sound cues and see if anybody was moving below you, etc, etc. After making little burst engagements with them, take a second to appreciate the view around. Make sure nobody's advancing on you. Take a second to appreciate the view. I wasn't taking any chances here, of course. Originally I couldn't get any line of sight detection on anybody, and I don't want to risk being one shot by a pump, an RPG, a ball or anything else, and I've got a lot of resources, and at this point it is all about building the forts. You should be very familiar with the base building in the final circles. It is the most important thing to be able to know which pieces snap together, how you can snap them together, how you can edit them, etc, etc. Now the rocket launcher is a little bit gimmicky now with the explosives. Even tiny pieces of cover can stop you doing any damage to somebody, so I decided to take all of this guy's cover out before I advance below to ensure that he is 100% dead and secure in the victory. Anyway guys, I have enjoyed making this analysis and review of one of my own gameplays where I got the win. I hope there's been some tips in there that help you, because I feel like I showcased a lot of things in this recording, a lot of different difficult situations I got into that I actually managed to cheese my way out of using pure skill, intelligence and strategical thought that was quick adaptation. So if you did enjoy something, please leave a like and a subscribe, and I just hope you're having a beautiful day. As always, take it easy and peace.